money are great people.
Watch this.
People.
You're listening to the Dean Obadala Show, where comedy meets politics and all things in between.
And welcome back, Dean Obadala Show. I'm here with Julian Zelizer, who we want to call Julian Zelizer, because I had Julian Castro on not too long ago. I'm like, you spell your name the same.
That's true.
How are you, Julian? Julian, and he's Julian Castro.
Just, I don't know.
Is your name Hispanic origin, though?
French and Hispanic origins. So,
So Julian,
when I'm in Argentina, I'm called Julian.
So you're now on, you're Julian Castro here. Yeah. No, actually, it's not helpful in the time of Trump. So we're going to keep using Julian Castro. We're gonna anglicize your name as much as possible. I would even change Zelizer at this point. You know him as CNN contributor, professor at Princeton University, and we were just talking about with Trump and the GOP Supreme Court getting rid of the form of government that I was born into. What's our next form of government that'll run the United States? Because the Constitution's not anymore. It doesn't matter. No more checks and balances. Nothing matters. Julian, help me here, my friend. My watch just told me, I'm not kidding, a second ago to breathe because it monitors, and apparently I was holding my breath in while I was walking through the halls because I was so upset about what's going on.
Well, this is one of those moments that you see where a president has tried and claimed greater executive power. This one was hard to believe it would be justified at all, because Congress was very clear this is not how the money is intended to be appropriated. But as of now, at least partially,
$2.5 billion.
The Supreme Court is saying. So this is it's about the wall, but it's about a bigger issue too, which is about presidential power. And these are how precedents are set.
And yourself as a historian, yep. I mean, let's be honest, I don't know how far back, but modern day presidents, Democrat or Republican, always want to grab more power. I mean,
always.
That's their goal, right? I mean, that's not new.
Nope.
And I mean, even President Obama, they would fight against him. Executive decisions like DACA and the one DAPA with the parents, were not to deport the parents, went up in the court and that was overturned.
Yeah. Now, look, every president wants as much power as possible. That's why you have checks and balances. And hopefully it's a combination of the system pushing back and some self-restraint. But look, there are big changes in war. We go to war all the time now. We send troops without Congress declaring war ever since World War II. And that's an example of how this stuff can happen. And the president doesn't have the self-restraint that an Obama had. So added to the normal thirst for power is someone who will go wherever he can go to get it.
And in the book, and I know you interviewed them, who wrote How Democracies Die, the two authors. And one of those things are, I'm not sure what the word, forbearance, I think is the word they used, or, sanity. But no, they used the word about leaders not pushing beyond, knowing they could try to push if they wanted. Some didn't, some did. And those who do, if the guardrails, and it seems so simplistic now, and it's not going to save us, but the guardrails are often your own party standing up against you. And when we don't have that at all, this is what we're seeing. Because the Republicans stood up now in large numbers to this and going, because they did. They actually, let's be fair, I forgot. I mean, at least a majority in the Senate and the House did vote to overturn the emergency. It was not even close to half of Republicans, but at least some Republicans came over for that vote.
Yeah, no, look, you've seen, I mean, this is a fusion of partisanship and strong partisanship in the GOP combined with this drive for executive power. And when Republicans have control of either chamber or both chambers, it provides cover. But you're right. In this case, some actually pushed back, but it looks like the court might save the president and he'll get his money anyway. And politically, even some of the money's important. He's already tweeting about it. This will be the story after the Mueller hearings and growing impeachment. I think we're going to now hear about the wall going into recess. And I think that's significant politically.
6-week recess. Doesn't seem like in the time of Trump what you should be doing, to be honest, when you have control of the House. And there's only about 50 plus days of actual business scheduled after the recess through the end of the year.
Well, it's true. I mean, when legislators go on recess, they are doing district work and they're there. And so often August is one of the best times to influence legislators. So on the one hand, they're not in Washington, they're not working. But we should watch what goes on in the town halls and the public events. Is there pressure either to face off against the president again on the wall funding or with the impeachment question?
So let's talk about let's pretend we still have a constitution and that things matter. Let's talk about Robert Mueller a little bit. It was remarkable what we saw. It was also stunning to watch the media narrative shift afterwards. In fact, I played a clip of Colbert. Let's have Stephen Colbert, help us, because a little humor at this time might actually help, and I might be breathing again, and my watch won't think I'm dead. So let's hear clip number 1.
Everybody out there still talking about former special counsel Robert Mueller's appearance on Capitol Hill. 6 hours of testimony. It was so long that by the end, we all felt as old as Robert Mueller looked. And at the hearings, Mueller confirmed that the President of the United States was not totally exonerated. Mueller also agreed that Trump obstructed the investigation multiple times, Russia tampered with the election in Trump's favor, and that the president welcomed that help, lied about welcoming it, and encouraged others to lie about it. In short, boring. I assume it must have been because the critics have decided, and they're panning Mueller's performance. Look at these headlines. New York Times, the blockbuster that wasn't. Mueller disappoints the Democrats. AP, Mueller hearing makes for less than compelling TV drama. And he's only got 35% on Rotten Tomatoes.
So, look, I was here Wednesday going, I really looked at it from a lawyer point of view, and I watched the Democrats on the House, many of them former prosecutors, building the elements for obstruction of justice and witness intimidation. And it's not exciting. It's analytical stuff. And I came here and on the show and I said, here's the elements and here's how they fulfilled it. To me, that was great. Was Mueller as compelling as a storyteller as I would have liked? No. But he did that job, and I thought he was really good in Intel, and I wish Intel was on its own separate day. Yeah. The Russian stuff should have been its own day. That would have been so riveting. But what's your takeaway overall before we break down with a couple of clips?
Look, on the big issue, this big issue, the substance was very damaging to the president. Any other president, any other moment, if this is what's confirmed after this lengthy report, any White House would be terrified, trembling, and wondering what's going to happen next. The times are different. The politics are working in a different way. This optics question, it was interesting. It blew up in the Twitter universe. Right. It is my only devil's advocate is they are televised hearings. So part of what televised hearings can do is how do they play, what do they look like, and do they move public opinion? But the big issue is, does it change the politics? And we'll see. I mean, the Republicans are doubling down not only on protecting the president, but they are now going to go after maybe former President Obama. I mean, even beyond that, who knows how far they're going to take this. So I don't think that changes. And
I heard they're going to investigate Jimmy Carter. That's rumored now. They're going all the way back to Carter.
But yeah, George Washington might be under the glare. But, and I don't know where the Democrats are. I know a lot of Democrats are excited. There's some movement on impeachment today, and Nadler gave some positive words about the process. But Speaker Pelosi, it's going to take a lot to get her to come out and say, I favor moving forward with impeachment, because she doesn't even have 50% of her caucus yet. And the way she calculates this is I need total caucus support if I'm going to do this without the Republican support.
Because you're going to lose. You might be putting certain House seats in jeopardy. And I understand that concern.
Yeah.
She's Speaker.
Yeah. And
there might be some. Look, they're going to go home to this August. I think they're going to find out and they're going to come back and report back. Because, Tom Malinkowski, who is from one of these districts that flipped, came out in favor of impeachment inquiry a long time ago. He's from Jersey. And I haven't had him on in a while. I had him on as a candidate a couple of times. And that was pretty good. Harley Rhoda, he's in Dana Rohrabacher's old seat. Yeah. That's a Republican seat. He was on the edge. And I don't know if he's formally come over, but he said, so I have to see, because 5 Democrats formally came over now, including Catherine Clark, who's the vice chair of the House Democratic Caucus, the highest ranking person, but she's not well known, so it doesn't move people. It's not like if Hakeem Jeffries came over, that would be huge, because then all of a sudden I think that would be like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
Speaker Pelosi might be indicating you go and say you're in favor. Let's see how this plays out.
And we'll have to see this was timed right before break. And so the break with these dramatic announcements today, it might be break end. There's more pressure on legislators. They come back and they move forward. The other scenario you have to remember is some of this is rhetorical. Nadler is now facing a primary challenge.
Is he?
Yeah. And Steyer was putting a lot of pressure. I don't think it will happen, but he's worried about it. And so you could imagine, just to be, again, devil's advocate, they're saying a lot today. They go on break and they hope by September, this has died down. And that's what Pelosi wanted a few weeks ago. So I don't know which it is, but I'm not. I think people should be cautious even with the court filings this week.
And let's play a little of the clips here, and then we'll chat about it. Not from the hearing as much. I mean, we all know the hearing now. There's no exoneration. I'll play some stuff on Russia in a second, but let's talk about Jerrold Nadler today. He's chair of the House Judiciary Committee. That's where the impeachment inquiry happens. That's the committee. It's not this scattershot thing with 5 committees working simultaneously. It's one committee. They have a formal vote and they do it. Here's Nadler today. Let's go to clip 4, please.
Let me share just a few sentences from the petition we are filing with the court today. Quote, because Department of Justice policies will not allow prosecution of a sitting president, the United States House of Representatives is the only institution of the federal government that can now hold President Trump accountable for these actions. To do so, the House must have access to all the relevant facts and consider whether to exercise its full Article 1 powers, including a constitutional duty power of the utmost gravity, recommendation of articles of impeachment. That duty falls in the first instance to the House Committee on the Judiciary. Close quote. As I said, that was from the court filing today. We take that responsibility seriously. No one can be above the law, not even President Trump.
So they're going to court to try to get more info, more data, more ammunition. And, you know, Jerrold Nadler, the headlines around the screens earlier were that it's essentially Nadler went on to say it's almost like impeachment light. Like they're not having a formal vote, but we're doing everything like impeachment except having the vote on it. Right. And I don't know in 6 weeks if anything changes on that. What's your reaction to Nadler here?
Yeah, I mean, the comparison people are making is in 1973, there was a Senate Select Committee, the Irving Committee, which was an impeachment, but that brought out a lot of the dirt of the administration. But I'm not convinced. You know, this is what the House has been doing since March. People are forgetting. They have used the term that he's conducted impeachable offenses. They've said we're investigating to see if we need impeachment. The big difference here is the court filing to get this grand jury information and just a little stronger on the language. But it's easy to imagine this fizzles because they are worried about that majority. Not that that's the right decision.
Right.
But the politics were pretty dug in since March that this isn't going to happen.
Here's Nancy Pelosi today. And you know, maybe, and I made a big deal in the first part of the show, that in this clip, Speaker Pelosi says Donald Trump committed obstruction of justice, which is the Speaker of the House saying the president committed a felony.
Right.
That's not getting any coverage anywhere. And maybe they're going, that's just Pelosi. She was just talking, but she's kind of measured. And so I want to play the clip for you. I actually think this is actually an important, significant clip in all of this, that her evolution. As she said before, I'd like to see him be in prison and stuff like that. Here's clip number 5.
We will proceed when we have what we need to proceed, not one day sooner. And everybody has the liberty and the luxury to espouse their own position and to criticize me for trying to go down the path in the most determined, positive way. Again, their advocacy for impeachment only gives me leverage. I have no complaint with what they are doing, but I know Mueller, I keep calling him Special Counsel Mueller. Mr. Mueller said the other day, confirmed in the public mind that the president has obstructed justice. You know what he said. It could have exonerated him. He would have, he didn't. But he was not able to investigate the president's finances, personal business or otherwise, and that is what we are doing in the courts. And so I'm willing to take whatever heat there is there to say when the decision will be made in a timely fashion. This isn't endless.
So, I mean, Paul Ryan never said Barack Obama essentially committed a felony. John Boehner never said stuff like that. I don't remember too many times speakers of the House have so just bluntly. Is this the world we live in, though? You can say that and it doesn't even make headlines?
Well, that's the question about the Democratic leadership. They had this report since March. They have been saying iterations of this. And I was trying to pull up some Pelosi quotes. So the question is, so what do you do? It's clear Republicans are willing to live in a world where even some of them admit, doing bad things. But the question for Democrats was what happens when they have power? And do you act on this? Ultimately, Speaker Pelosi has to come out for impeachment. and not impeachment light. She has to use the words and say, we really are in a serious place. That's when people will turn. And leadership is needed to actually mobilize a caucus on something of this greatness. And I still haven't heard that. But that is the question. What do you do when you admit this is what the president is doing in terms of abusing power? Do you act? Or for political expediency, do you say, we'll just wait it out?
You know, the day of Mueller's testimony, and that was a dramatic day, of course, Donald Trump was tweeting nonstop about this and panicking. No time for racism against Congressman Omar or bigotry against Congressman Tlaib or others. And to me, but my point is, though, if there was an impeachment inquiry that would go on for months and months, if you're just worried about politics, even if you end up with no articles of impeachment, whatever you do, he already thinks he's exonerated. So that's that horse is out of the stable. You're going to keep him focused on himself. When he feels threatened, all he can think about is Donald Trump. And I actually think that's really good. And I'd love to see us take the control of the narrative, us Democrats, not you. You're a professor. But the idea of, I mean, do you think that the minute he feels threatened, this guy acts differently?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think on the ground, on ethics, on is there a case, I wrote in March in the Washington Post, it's time to impeach. That was the headline they gave it, and I stand by that. Politically, I don't actually think Pelosi's right. I think that she has it wrong politically, that if you had a president under investigation, if you had a president seriously being questioned, if he abused power, and if Democrats actually took a vote and said, yeah, that's exactly what he did, it's not clear to me why that helps him. It's not clear to me that suburban voters in these key states are going to love that. It's not clear even in these swing districts that the voters who went to Democrats after being Republican, that they would be happier with the president. And his base is energized. He's using this now to vindicate himself. So in some ways, they're fulfilling their worst hopes. And I think you're going to now see an investigation into the investigators that will actually be what the fall's about.
And that would be so horrible if the media narrative becomes controlled by the Republicans. When the Democrats have this opportunity to do the right thing, first of all, the right thing, and then also politically, I believe, also the right thing. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about Russian interference and Mitch McConnell's own political calculations not to allow votes on shoring up our election infrastructure. And Joe Scarborough was destroying him today, calling him Moscow Mitch, was trending on Twitter. And it doesn't make sense to me why he would be doing this. It's such an easy vote to allow to happen. Just do it. We're done with it. So let's take a break and come back.
The Dean Obeidallah Show.
My slogan for Trump in 2020, Trump for prison 2020.
SiriusXM Progress. And now, more of the Dean Obeidallah Show on Sirius XM's Progress.
Welcome back to the Dean Obeidallah Show. We're here with Julian Zelizer. We're talking about the end of America, and it's facing us right in the face. So, all right, here is a quick clip from Will Hurd speaking to Robert Mueller about are the attacks by Russia continuing on. This is from the testimony on Wednesday, and Will Hurd's a Republican. Here's clip number 6, please.
As we sit here, and they expect to do it during the next campaign.
And yesterday, the Senate Intel Committee, chaired by Richard Burr, a Republican, comes out a bipartisan report, and it says the attack in 2016 targeted all 50 states, extensive activity. It talks about 21 states being military hackers significantly, is the term they use, infiltrated, and Russian military hackers, not just some guy on a bed. Russia's government under the direction of Vladimir Putin, who Trump defends. And it goes on to encourage, this report yesterday, take urgent steps to replace outdated and vulnerable voting systems. It said more money may be needed. So they already know, they're part of the Senate. Some money was allocated already. They're saying more money may be needed. 2 bills yesterday before the Senate. Mitch McConnell says, no, it will give Democrats a political benefit, is his quote. And he goes on to other stupid stuff here. What's the politics of being against shoring up our election infrastructure?
Yeah, it's hard to, I mean, for me, the hearings were so dramatic when he talked about what this was all about to begin with and what kind of threat the country faced, what it still faces. And it's a serious issue. And Russia might be the culprit right now, but who knows? Lots of countries have hacking capacity. And so why wouldn't McConnell just put himself and the party on the side of right, not political right, but being correct on the legislation? It's just, I don't know. Look, the most cynical interpretation is he heard Mueller, and Mueller said this is benefiting the Republicans. So he wants the
There's
votes.
another cynical. There's even more cynical.
Yeah.
Here is Joe Scarborough this morning calling him Moscow Mitch in his theory. Here's clip number 8. It's a short one.
I understand that there's an oligarch that I've read is going to be setting up a big aluminum plant in Moscow Mitch's home state. I don't know if that's it, but how can Moscow Mitch so willingly turn a blind eye, not only this year, to what his Republican chairman of the Intel Committee is saying, to what Robert Mueller is saying, to what the FBI director is saying, to what the DNI is saying, to what the CIA is saying, to what the United States military intel community is saying? How can Moscow Mitch keep denying that Vladimir Putin continues to try to subvert American democracy?
And that oligarch, as we got a call from, made us all aware, and I found the article, that oligarch that he's talking about is absolutely true. It's Oleg Deripaska, who has ties to Putin, who was under sanctions, who the Trump administration was lifting the sanctions, and now they're going to, this aluminum company, $200 million to a new project of all states, Kentucky. And if you read about this, Julian, if you read about this in another country, you would think it's a banana republic.
Right. Look, I don't know, and I don't know enough.
I mean, that's all. This is all. I'm reading from CNN. This is all true. The Deripaska,
right? And
now they're putting the money, and there were
right.
sanctions on him. And Mnuchin went to fight to lift the sanctions and all this stuff. And now he's giving the money. He's building anywhere in the country. He's picking Kentucky.
Look, it could be a sordid explanation with interests basically driving what McConnell does. The other explanation, which fits what he does all the time, is McConnell will protect that majority in the Senate at all costs. And every decision he makes, that's the number one goal. He doesn't care about institutions. He doesn't care about the integrity of any process. You know, it's the same story with the Supreme Court nomination of Merrick Garland, and everyone saying, how can you do this to the... He doesn't care.
Right.
That's not how he thinks. So there is a connection that he sees this. He's going to, right after the Mueller hearings, he's going to give fodder to these Democrats. So no, and he'll kill it for that purpose. And he believes at some level that the country's better off with Republicans in power in the Senate.
Unreal. So let's talk about something that really could potentially have a big impact on the election, and it's not something I'm rooting for, but an economic slowdown. Today, the GDP report, which got little press because Trump tweeted about everything else in the world and the media chases it, that the GDP number from last quarter to the quarter before dropped 1 full percentage point. So it went from 3.1% to 2.1%. That's like a drop of 30% if you just look at statistics. And that is the lowest GDP growth and it's all annualized. That's why they're doing it. But since that's the lowest GDP growth since early 2017. And Trump had promised to remind people of GDP growth of 4, 5, even 6%, he said. So at what point does this become alarming to Team Trump?
Yeah, when he can't spin it favorably. I mean, that's what the game is politically. So the numbers drop, and then the question is, what does the public absorb? What do they feel? So what you really want to know is, how does it impact unemployment? Because that's the measure most people have of how the economy's doing. There was an article, Nate Cohen wrote an article in the New York Times looking at the Electoral College and why Trump is in decent shape despite what everyone thinks. And part of it is the unemployment's still low in some of these key areas, and that's going to be helpful. If that drops, then Democrats have to stumble all over themselves not to take advantage of the fact the president isn't doing well in the economy.
And how much, and I'll give you some numbers here, but it seems that the trend of the economy in an election year is extremely, extremely important. It allows the other side to make an argument. For example, Ronald Reagan won a tremendous victory in 1984, off the charts. He won 49 states. Is that the one he beat Mondale? Only Mondale won his own state of Minnesota. The unemployment rate was at 8%, but it had been dropping. And the next year went to 7%, and the economy really took off. George Herbert Walker Bush, who lost to Bill Clinton, had he had a 3.2% GDP, but unemployment had been 6.4% the year before, and then in the election year up to 7.3%. So this trending seems to be the key. So unemployment now, in a year from now, I'm not wishing for the states at 4.5% and trending upwards. Then the economy becomes an issue.
No, absolutely. And especially with a president like Trump, who has such low favorability, and even in these areas that voted for him, people don't love him, and they say there's all kinds of problems. So if you can switch it from a debate about an incumbent where the economy's good, even though you don't like him, to an incumbent who you don't like, and the economy's actually moving in the wrong direction, that could open up space. It's still a tricky argument, meaning you're still moving from a place where the economy's pretty good at the macro level. And Democrats have to be careful because they can't just campaign right now saying, everything's falling apart and we want the economy almost to do. But you have to craft this carefully. But that's a great area of vulnerability. And Democrats tend to have policies that actually matter to these communities where Trump does not. And that's where they could connect the big story of the economy to their own promise for 221.
I think few things I believe that are absolute truisms in politics. One is you can't tell people the economy is better than it is, and you can't tell them it's worse than it is because they know what it is. So if you're doing horrible and they're telling you it's great, you're like, it's almost insulting, and vice versa. Not as insulting the other way around, but still like, well, this person's not in reality. But the fact that Trump has taken such credit for this economy, touting himself. Even today, he is concerned because he tweeted today, he blamed the Federal Reserve, while CNBC and Bloomberg and others who are not liberals blamed Trump's tariffs for the slowdown economically. In fact, they thought it was going to be an even smaller GDP number. And it was only bolstered by two things, consumer spending and government spending, which is kind of interesting because that's one of the components in the GDP. So the government can spend more money to try to prop the GDP up. But if consumers start losing confidence, the floor could fall. And I'm not hoping for that. I'm sincere. I've written articles. I slammed Bill Maher when last year. He's like, we need the economy to tank. I'm like, no, you don't. I believe we can beat Trump on the issues because everyone feels the pain. That's not fair to have people suffering so you can beat the guy. We should be able to beat him anyway. But if we start seeing a trending thing in a year from now, it's fair game. I don't think you're rooting for it. You'll be saying
fair. It's the same as what puts him in a good position. There are things that go beyond Trump. So the fact he's an incumbent, the fact the economy has been good, the fact that his party's united. These are factors. You took any president in office, they're running for re-election, you say they have a pretty good chance of winning. When the trend line is down for the economy, it hurts any president. And so that would open up a key area of vulnerability. It also would hurt him within the Republican Party because there's a lot of wealthier, educated Republicans who really don't like him. But they're happy with the stock market. They're happy that there's jobs, and so that's where you can weaken them. But again, we're far away from that.
Right.
So we'll see where it is.
Well, I didn't play it here, but there is the clip where right when he was selling the tax cut for corporations, he literally said that we're going to go see the economy at 4 or 5, maybe even 6%. And I can see that being played if the economy slides and saying, you promise, you give a tax cut to the wealthy, your donor class and corporations, and you promise this, and look what we really have, 2%, 1.5%. You know, a recession is just a contraction of the GDP for 2 quarters in a row.
Yeah.
You could see that happening again.
The bad part is the way he will double down on that. I mean, part of it will be to spin it and say they're wrong, critics are wrong. But the other part is he will appeal to these social, cultural arguments on race, on immigration. He'll go beyond what we can even imagine right now. And you know, that's a frightening thing to think about in mainstream American politics.
That's true. What we're going through as a country is, you're a historian. Has there been times like this? I can't.
Not in modern times.
Right, not in modern time.
Not in the 20th century or late 20th century plus. You've seen elements of it. I said this once, that a lot of Republicans have played on racial division.
Sure.
Nixon did it. He actually used the send them back kind of argument. Reagan did it, talking about welfare queens. Bush in '88, George H.W. ran an ad about Willie Horton and the furlough program in Massachusetts. But never have they made it, none of them made it the centerpiece of the campaign, and kind of elevated racial division, other kinds of social and cultural division as the argument, a kind of defense of whiteness. And I think that's what you're going to see in the coming months. And that's distinct. And never have you had a president talk the way that he talks since the 19th century.
Look at how subtle things were. Ronald Reagan kicks off his campaign in Philadelphia, Mississippi, talking about states' rights. And why did that matter? That's where, if you saw the movie Mississippi Burning, that's where the two Jewish Americans and the African American young guy who were there to register voters, that's where they found them.
Yep.
And that wasn't a mistake. And I remember trying to put in a Daily Beast article, and my editor at the time go, "No, I don't think that's why." I'm like, why would you pick Philadelphia, Mississippi and talk about states' rights? That's where it was. And that was a subtlety. It appeals to those who know the issue, and the rest of the people, they're oblivious. That's the dog whistle. The dog hears it. Yep. The rest of the people don't know what's going on.
Now, Trump's bet is you throw that out the window and you just say it out loud and you say it explicitly, and that's legitimate. And I mean, we will see on Election Day if that is working, quote unquote. But it is a remarkable change in presidential rhetoric. He's taking George Wallace, turning him into a mainstream president of the United States, and just continuing to do it over and over again without pushback from his party.
And as a historian, I'll ask you this as well: the chant of "Send her back," thousands of people cheering. You know, people called. There was a level of concern. There was a level of concern in mine. To me, it was almost the shock I felt when I saw Trump, and he wasn't present then, call for a total complete shutdown of Muslims, and the crowd cheer. And I could not believe what I was watching, that he was going to call for a ban of... And I had heard of Muslim ban before, don't get me wrong. I was writing about the right-wing bigots out there. He was just mimicking them. To have the president of the United States be the podium, standing at the podium and be quiet for 13 seconds while his crowd is chanting this. What was your reaction?
No, and chanting something that came out of his tweet, what he wrote. So that it wasn't just that he was quiet. They were repeating his message, his talking point. And it's certainly that should constitute one of the great lows in American political history. And unfortunately, it's not an isolated event. And this will continue to be part of his package in the remainder of this term. And I think it's just a taste of what he's going to do. He is willing to unleash these forces, and I don't know if he thinks about whether he can control what he unleashes, but it's dangerous stuff. It's not just him, it's not even his support. He's tapping into these deep-rooted antagonisms in the United States that are, they're horrible and they're dangerous.
A month before the Send Her Back incident, I wrote for the Daily Beast and I was focusing on him retweeting Katie Hopkins, who most Americans don't know, from the UK. And in fact, I wrote about it last weekend for CNN, but I wrote a little thing about her then and saying to people, if this is a preview, this could get really ugly. I never could have guessed a month later you'd be having thousands cheer Send Her Back, and that, polls came out, a majority of Americans, a Fox News poll yesterday, majority thought it was racist. How many Republicans? About 20% of Republicans thought it was racist. And the difference in values that the rest of America, about 70-something% of independents and Democrats combined, thought it was racist, to the 20% of Republicans who are not troubled by that at all, I don't know what you say. How do you connect with those people? Because I can't convince them that if they don't believe it's racist to tell a black woman to go back to Africa, even though they weren't sharing go back to Africa. But I think if they were saying go back to Africa, I don't think they thought it was racist either. They'd be like, well, that's where she's from. That's where you go. They'll justify it in some other way. Like, it is the fundamentally most racist thing you can say to someone who's immigrant or child of immigrants. That's what I hear this garbage.
And I word this carefully. It's almost easier to understand a Republican who says, well, I'm just going to let that be. But to pretend it's anything but what it obviously is, that's when you're just entering an area where it's hard to believe anything that's coming out of the mouth of a Republican.
I love Republicans. I wish an anchor would say that they'll say some racist thing Trump said, and they're like, that's not the words I would have picked. I would say, like, so how would you express your racism? Like, how would you do it? Like, is there other words you would choose to be racist? And let the member of Congress sweat there. Like, oh, no. Well, they're racist. So what words would you choose to convey racism? That's all I want to know. Because if you're not slamming, only 4 members of the Republican House of Representatives went on record condemning Donald Trump's words.
Yeah, it's hard.
Where are we?
That's an ongoing story with the party. And it says a lot about where Republicans have moved, not just after Trump's elected, but where they've been in the last decade.
All right, so when we come back, we'll talk about the potential antidotes, who are the Democrats, and new polls that came out in the last 2 days. I was actually surprised by these poll numbers, to be frank. And we'll come back and cover that with my friend Julian Zelizer right after this.
The Dean Obeidallah Show.
I think Trump clips that they play on the media should come with a health warning saying that if you watch this, you'll get dumber. Never has somebody said so much stupid in so little time as Donald Trump does.
Sirius XM Progress. Back to the Dean Obeidallah Show on Sirius XM Progress.
And welcome back, Dean Obeidallah Show, live here with Julian Zelizer, CNN contributor. You can see, are you on this weekend? I assume you are.
Yeah. I'll be on tomorrow.
Check him out tomorrow, so you can hear him now, though. New polls came out. You know, the polls after the first debate showed Joe Biden losing some of his lead, dropping down to 20%, 21%. Kamala Harris moving up. Rating of their methodology. Fox News, well, we think it's what we know, the network, it gets an A from 538. It's a very good poll. Came out yesterday. Biden back up to 33% national. Sanders, number 2 at 15%. Warren at 12%. Harris down to 10%.
Yeah, they can't. I mean, there was momentum upwards in the polls about a week ago, 2 weeks ago, but Biden is holding this. And it's not Biden, meaning we've barely seen him. The only time people really saw him so far was not good. But the desire to win is strong. And at least now, he is imagined as that person.
I think he is.
And so the thing that could undercut him first are these debates, which are now a pretty big platform.
Sick if I was him. I would not go to debates.
Right. And so
just say I pass.
Can they keep puncturing that and open up space? And then will be those early primaries. He does have to win. He is a candidate whose entire promise is that he can win, so he can't lose.
Right.
And that's the only opening, but he's holding his lead right now.
And in one of the important states, and one that is not like Iowa and New Hampshire, which are just crazily white, and South Carolina, much more diverse, and of the African-American population plays a big role in the Democratic primary. You would have thought, I mean, I honestly thought Harris would be much closer. This is yesterday from Monmouth University. It gets an A+ by 538, so it's got great methodology. In primary polls, you always questions about it, but this is off the charts. Joe Biden at 39% of a field of like 20 people, 39%. Harris at 12%. Sanders at 10%. Booker is dead at 2%. If Booker doesn't do well in South Carolina, it's over. And he's expanded his lead in South Carolina. I have no explanation for what's going on.
I think there is even in every community within the Democratic coalition, a pragmatic decision that is being made at least now in terms of picking who can win rather than picking who you love. Although some of this is the Obama connection. And I do think
in South Carolina, so this might not be fair, but if you add up the more progressive candidates like Sanders and Warren, that's only 19% to Biden's 39%. It's not the national, it's a little different. With the Fox News poll, if you add up Sanders and Warren, it's 27% to Biden's 33%. So some might argue, well, if we just had more of the progressives in there alone, if it was one-on-one, maybe it's a different race. And that's always an argument you can make. I think our nominees...
Hampshire early polls can often skew in the wrong direction or miss changes that are going to take place. But to dismiss Biden at this point is a mistake because he is holding that lead.
It's interesting. I am running even with the governor of Montana, Bullock, at 0% right now. We're tied. Me and Tulsi Gabbard also tied. The Fox News poll has a lot of zeros. South Carolina gave 2% for Tom Steyer. He was just on Monday. I like Tom. So... the big question is the debate next week. Yeah. Candidates are seeing this. It's no longer into Iowa. Literally, it's going to feel like a minute. What do you expect? I mean, that night, it's the people who are on the stage with Biden. The key ones are Harris, Booker, de Blasio.
Yeah.
You think they go after him hard?
Well, he's indicating he's going to go after everyone hard. That's what
Biden's quote is, "I'm not going to be as polite this time."
Yeah, we'll see. That could actually put him in danger. The more he talks, the more trouble he usually gets into. So it depends how prepared he will be. They will go after him. I mean, given this poll and these other numbers you're talking about, this is an opportunity. They saw in the first debate, with all of this, there's a softness of his lead. I think that's what people saw. Like, boy, it fell all of a sudden. And so the idea is if you can puncture him again and give people two opportunities nationally to see him, and both times see he can't debate, that would be damaging to him. I don't know. I'm assuming he'll be prepped. I'm assuming he'll be ready to go. But
if he's
I've
not
learned
this
enough
time,
in
that's
politics.
ridiculous.
You never
And Joe Biden, and this is obviously a strategy now, and I actually think it's probably a good strategy because they're trying to turn his past into his weakness. He's trying to turn it into his strength by saying, he says, I got a past I'm proud of. He goes, they want to argue about the past. I can do that. I got a past I'm proud of. They got a past that's not quite so good. And because everyone's got a past, you can bring up Senator Harris in her prosecution days. There's some really good stuff on criminal justice reform, some stuff not good now in the light of where we live in. He's got things in his past you can bring up every day, over and over. So I really thought the new polls would be much closer. I get stunned here and there. but I thought the trend line was a tighter race going to this. So the more this is like this, if you're de Blasio and you're on the stage, and he's a good talker, de Blasio, he'll interrupt. I could see him. I wonder if the others on the stage, if I could see Booker going after him really hard, very hard.
Well, Booker's desperate at this point.
Yes,
this
exactly.
is someone everyone thought was, great presidential material, and he's really struggling. And they've gone back and forth on criminal justice policy and race. And so I assume that's a setup to go after Biden again. And Harris, she's on the same stage.
She is.
She will not try to cement that position.
I was going to ask you, because she's on the stage with Bernie.
But she wants that. I mean, if she can kind of put him away, so to speak, politically.
He's Bernie.
It's hard. No, it's hard. It's hard. But make a convincing case that she's the one who has a better chance with those policies. That would be important to her. And then, Mayor Pete Buttigieg is there. He raised a lot of money, which is kind of interesting.
Down to 5. So it seems that some of the, and I'm guessing, but I would think some of the Buttigieg people are natural fits for Biden on some level, because Buttigieg is not a very progressive person.
Right.
He is progressive, but he's not Warren Sanders type of thing. So if you liked him and you're like, I don't think he's going to win, it was kind of fun, I'm going to go with the person.
Or vice versa. There's probably part of his campaign that's thinking, if Biden has this collapse, I'm the one who can actually get those votes rather than the other candidate.
And so is Klobuchar. All right, let's take a break. We'll come back with more of Julian Zelizer right after this.
Dean Obadala Show on Sirius XM Progress 127. The Dean Obadala Show on Sirius XM Progress 127.
Welcome back, Dean Obadala Show. We're here with Julian Zelizer talking about what's going to happen next week at the debate. And we don't really know what's going to happen, but this is... Is there anyone that has to have a good debate and they're gone? I mean, I think people were surprised by Swalwell dropping out, but do you think that it's make or break for someone? Because the third debates are much higher standard.
Some of those third-tier candidates who are, as you said, going at 0-0-0, some of them will drop, I think, if they can't do something dramatic. Because I don't know when the next debate is.
It's
I think
September 12th,
So
13th, yeah.
To carry yourself from July to September in a campaign that's costly is really difficult. And then there's people like Booker who, again, were prominent, but if he can't move, it's conceivable he'll drop out. And the party wants to soon kind of consolidate in these debates so you can focus on 5 main people. And you can't do that. These debates are like, almost a parody. There's so many people.
That's why the September debates are you need 2% in the polls, averaging at 130,000 donors, not 65,000. So they're doubling it. I'm not sure how many will qualify. You look at the numbers now, we're talking about 6 or 7. But if you just do one debate and it's 8, it's still a lot. I'd rather it's going to be 2 nights. It'd be better if it's 4 and 4.
Yeah.
And then we all get to hear from these candidates for long, extended on issues like foreign policy, which no one talks about anymore, and a long list. Julian, thanks very much, my friend, for coming in. I really appreciate it.
Pleasure.
Check him out on Twitter, of course.
At Julian Zelizer.
He writes he wrote 8 articles during the show. He's remarkable. This article writing. Watch him on CNN over the weekend. We'll be back with What Just Happened. Sopan Deb from the New York Times and Maysoon Zayid, comedian, right after this.
And now, we've come to the portion of our show where we have to ask, what just happened? We can't believe it either, but let's take a look back at the insanity that was this week and look ahead to what will make us facepalm next week. This is What Just Happened on the Dean Obeidallah Show. Take it away, Dean.
And welcome back to the Obi Dollar Show. We're live Friday, July 26th, and it is What Just Happened, our weekly look back at what happened that week, and a lot happened.
Some big news.
Big news, and joining me in studio, the big news is Maysoon Zayid here, comedian, #1 TED Talk, just got a standing ovation giving a speech on the 6 train. It was remarkable. And sitting next to her is my friend Sopan, writer for the New York Times, also a comedian, and both and myself will be this Sunday, July 28th, at the Comic Strip in New York City, the Big Brown Comedy Hour. And Asif Manvi's going to be in, who's in a new CBS series, Evil.
Sunday night, 8 p.m., air conditioning. This amazing lineup.
Yeah, definitely.
Rami Youssef would always be there, but now he can't.
Did you hear the big Rami news?
Marshall Ali.
Marshall Ali.
He's going to be in the second season of one episode.
I saw joining his show. God bless him, mashallah.
It's interesting how things are. We're everywhere. Remember,
hey
years
Dean,
ago,
does Rami take your calls anymore?
Rami doesn't. I text him. He
Yes,
doesn't respond.
Yes, he does. He does.
doesn't take your calls
He
Sometimes.
does. He does. He says, Auntie Ann, I'm busy.
It depends how busy he is, but I think he's back in LA right now writing and everything.
Yeah.
I think they're usually back for the second. I remember last summer he was writing the whole time.
I don't know what that's like to have a show actually make it to TV. So
I text him to be in this Brown show. Nothing.
Yeah.
Back. I'm like, oh my God.
I couldn't comment on this because the big news this week was that I was crushed.
I will tell you, I was thinking about this as I was promoting the show Sunday night, and you guys have run this show for now 10 years. This is
I don't even know.
Yeah.
But it's only once in a while.
I know, but I take a lot in the show. Because it's how
take pride.
I do. I genuinely do.
I think all the credit goes to Dean, and you have no connection to the proudness.
No, but I take a lot of pride in that the show exists. Like I take, I've been doing the show.
It started 10 years ago when there was no Brown comedians. I mean, literally, it was hard. I was just asking people to put, brown face. I'm like, can you do this? It was horrible.
No.
Like I didn't even put the show together. I have nothing to do with like the vision behind the show.
Right.
I've just been very fortunate that I've been able to perform on the show since I think my first time I ever did this was 2013.
Wow, that many years ago?
Yeah, when I first and
he was
Dean,
nervous.
Old.
Oh, and I was and to be able to be a part of it all this time, I can't. I love doing the show. So
well, look at this week. I mean, the show is almost all. I'm not kidding. Either children of immigrants or immigrants themselves in the show. Brown, not all Muslim, but brown. And these are the people that Trump supporters are cheering send her back. I mean, we are the people. That's and not even. There's no joke there. That's the reality. Our room is so much of what Trump and sadly a percentage of his base, and I can't quantify it, does not like us just because of who we are. We've all heard send her back. Send you back. Go back to where you're from.
To your country.
And you're the child of immigrants, right?
Oh, yeah.
See,
absolutely.
I mean, the show really is.
Yeah.
And obviously, my father's an immigrant and yours are.
Yeah.
And we have comics. Asif's an immigrant to this country. He's not even here legally. I mean, that's the...
Well, the thing is that,
undocumented.
this week we saw that there was an American citizen that was held in the detention
That was one of our
center
issues. We can talk about that.
for
We'll
3
start there.
weeks. So that's what I'm thinking is that, if they come and throw a net over us and throw us in camp or something, this might be people's last chance to come see us. So I say buy tickets.
This could be the last show. If you're interested, by the way,
this is the last of our
Maysoon.com. You can find the link.
Maysoon.com or the Comic Strip New York City. Check it out. But
Asif, by the way, Asif has one of the great. He wrote that book. He wrote his memoir, A No Land's Man.
Yes.
And in it, he tells the story about how the reason his father wanted to bring Asif's family to this country is because of he discovered brunch. And the family, and they have so much food in this country that they have a fourth meal.
They have a meal. He's like, here's the thing. I interviewed Asif countless times about his book on my radio show and in a live thing. And afterwards, I talked to him. And some of the things were not true in his book. He wrote them for comedic effect.
Oh, really?
Yes. And I'm like, what? I'm like, are you even Indian? I'm like, what is going on here?
Oh, I'm devastated to hear that.
Me too. I'm like, are you serious to me? And I'm like, the brunch thing was sort of true. That was based in some of the stuff. Some of the things were definitely real. Some literally, he goes, there was a seed of truth, and I just made it entertaining and interesting. And I'm like,
see, they're fact checking my book for Hello Sunshine. It's killing me as a comedian because I haven't told the truth in 20 years. My mom doesn't even know my actual legal name. name, and like they're fact checking everything. I'm not allowed to do that.
Well, if they contact me,
so
I'll
when
deny
they
it.
call you, just lie.
So let's talk about this. You touch on it. U.S. citizen, and this is Trump's ice here.
Dude, this
U.S.
is my
citizen
worst
guy
nightmare.
Francisco Galicia, 18 years old, born in Texas, high school student. He grew up in Mexico, but born in the U.S., has a birth certificate and everything. Was detained for 3 weeks by ICE, even though his lawyer. And when he was detained, first he had his state ID with him, a social security card with him, and a wallet-sized birth certificate. Because if you're Hispanic, apparently in this country at this point, this is what you're down to: carrying your birth certificate in your wallet. Still, ICE didn't believe him. They said he was a liar because his mom apparently was with him and had some tourist visa which said he was born in Mexico, which was, I don't know why, that was just inaccurate. This other stuff was true. Until 3 weeks, they held a U.S. citizen in ICE.
It's my Us movie. It's my worst fear that I somehow. So I'm really lucky because the doctor who delivered me was drunk and there was a malpractice suit, and I'm always like, okay, there's proof I was born in Englewood. Like that's
Right.
where it all went down. But I'm still scared of that. The idea that you get thrown in a detention camp, and the fact that you were literally born in the USA, an American citizen, does nothing to free you. Like he described the conditions. He
Yeah, I'm gonna go
described
through that in a
being
second, yeah.
Sorry, I keep
No,
stealing
go ahead.
your
No, I
sunshine.
thought you make your
just
point.
Don't
I'll
you
give the
think
details of
that's
that.
like the worst nightmare of any American citizen? It's like we fight to get people out of other countries, and in your own country, you're detained for 3 effing weeks. We have computers.
Right, and just so it's clear, this is not the only time this has happened. I've had so many immigrant activists come on over the years say that they go in, they take, it's mixed family, mixed status. One's
No.
immigrant, others undocumented. They take everyone. They take you. You don't have proof of ID, and they keep you there. And you have now the burden's on you to prove you're a U.S. citizen. You're out of your house. You've got. I mean, how many people know where their birth certificate is right now?
I don't
right,
know.
So
where
I mean,
mine is.
so how are you going
But
to?
I carry my U.S. passport with me everywhere, and you know
And it
that.
does say
I've always had that.
And by the way, and this is really important, you know, Francisco described the conditions he was stuck in for 3 weeks. He was not allowed to shower for 23 days, forced to sleep on a cement floor, not given enough food. They were given bologna sandwiches, and he lost 26 pounds because over 23 days, which is not healthy because of how little food they're
And
giving.
we're not going to compare this to concentration camps?
I
People
wanna
are
call-
actually melting away and losing massive amounts of weight?
And they would give him a wipe every 3 or 4 days, and that was how they cleaned themselves. And literally, and they were afraid of the guards because he'd rather be in an overcrowded cell with the other people there because the guards were hideous. Now, they didn't say they were tortured or beaten, but I guess they were being abusive to them. But here's my idea. Why don't we start calling these Trump hotels?
Yes.
So that you brand
Yes.
it with Trump and let him deal with the repercussions. Everyone, Trump hotels, they're dirty, no shower. You're there for like weeks at a time, no
It's
room
like,
service.
It's usually like Trump Hotel Doral, Trump Hotel DC. It should be Trump Hotel Border.
Trump Hotel Border. I just
Yeah.
want to call it Trump Hotel to upset him. I mean,
I think it's a great idea, and we literally should start making that what people call it, so that every time you hear that, that's what you think of.
that's exactly what I want to do. I'm not even kidding. I want to
Oh,
do
I love
framing.
this.
I'm going to get George Lakoff on the line, who's the king of framing stuff. What do you think about the framing, Sopan? Any suggestions?
I will say, generally speaking, I was really shocked at how this wasn't a round-the-clock, front page, 24/7, every cable news network, every paper, every leading with this. A U.S. citizen!
Born in the United States of America.
A
Detained for
U.S.
3 weeks and can't get out.
This wasn't an instance, not that this makes it right, but this wasn't an instance where he didn't have ID on him.
Right.
Right.
But he's not like John Benet Ramsey looking enough. Like he
What?
didn't look.
John Benet Ramsey, the little girl who was killed?
That's not funny.
Oh,
but
your
you
point
know
is
what
like the
I'm
little
saying?
white girl
like,
with
if
blonde
he was
hair.
a little white girl with
I see your
blonde
point. I
hair,
see your
then
point.
he would be. It's not funny at all that that poor child was murdered, but we pay more attention when something atrocious happens to someone who looks like my friend Reese.
Fox News behind you. Breaking news: Muslim comedian makes fun of John Benet Ramsey's death.
No,
if you were
I'm
Ilhan
not.
Omar, that's what they would do. They would just.
They do it anyway, and I'm a nobody. They're rabid. His followers are rabid. Anyway.
It's. I'm not going.
But what I'm saying is, I don't think that kid, like he's a kid, right?
He's
You're
18 years
saying
old. Francisco Galicia.
He's 19, but he
18.
doesn't look it.
I will also say, like, okay, leaving aside from whether this should have been like the top story all day, this is given that this was a U.S. citizen, I was also surprised that more lawmakers didn't speak. You didn't see a lot of tweets about it. You didn't see and Republicans in particular who like to kind of brand themselves as the law and order party, as like think about how Republicans react to like what they see as censorship from Facebook and Twitter.
Right.
They're very upset about it. Big government is censoring us and shadow banning us, and they put a lot of it. But here's a U.S. citizen, who had his ID on him, and still got detained and lost 20.
Think about that.
And
the
also,
idea that's how malnourished.
He has PTSD now.
I have
now
no
he
doubt. For
definitely
3 weeks
has
of that,
a disability.
he
after
literally
that.
said in an interview, and I'm assuming this is all true, he was almost going to agree to be deported just to get out.
Yeah.
And then try to regroup in Mexico to try to come back in the country, because then it might be even easier. You're free at least and get out of there.
And the cartoonish comparison is, of course, that ASAP Rocky, who I really feel bad for because the circumstances he's in are not good. He has all the attention. This U.S. citizen that did literally nothing but cross his own country's borders in detention.
And Trump won't do anything about it. Trump won't talk about this because there's no benefit to his own calculations politically. To talk about a Latino person who was Hispanic, who was taken by his ICE, treated unfairly, horrifically, and he's giving us more documentary evidence on what he's seeing, what they're living through. Meanwhile, Trump is saying their conditions are better than where they came from in one of the most callous comments I ever heard. It wasn't about this guy, but last week. And that's the world we live in. And, I want to talk to you, and I was joking earlier slightly about what this show was about. But what was your reaction to hearing thousands, not like just Trump saying it, it's not a tweet, thousands of people lustfully cheering, "Send her back"?
Actually, Maysoon, do you want to go first?
Sure, I'll go. I mean, Dean knows me really well. It's very hard for me to get ruffled. I'm not a scaredy cat. I hang out in war zones. It was chilling. And that look on his face, that look of just evil pleasure. He was so enjoying it. It was so chilling to me. But also, I think it's really interesting that Ilhan is the main target of the wrath.
Doesn't end.
Because she is black, she is visibly Muslim, and she has an accent. And these three things together are just everything white supremacists hate. And I think that it's so unbelievably heartbreaking to watch this woman be tortured day in and day out, bullied day in and day out. Even though I know she has no problem and that she bounces back, the fact that this is a mother with children who's getting her life threatened while he basks in chants of hatred is just chilling.
And if she was killed, he would not care. And some in his base, I'm not going to speculate how much, would cheer it. Would be so happy that she was killed.
Yeah. They would cheer it. I mean, today there was a whole story about these people that took a picture in front of the Emmett Till Memorial sign that they had riddled with bullets. There was the woman in North Carolina who used the N-word, went on the news and said she's unapologetic. They would cheer her death. She said I would use it again. Because Trump has worked nonstop since birther time to dehumanize people. And he made Obama a pretend Muslim. Ilhan is the real deal, and she wears that scary to supremacist scarf on her head. They like hoods, they don't like hijab.
Now, what about you, Sopan? You're the son of an immigrant.
Well, I mean, I've had experiences at Trump rallies. Remember, I mean, I tell the story at the Big Brown Show quite a bit. I had the experience where someone told me to go back to Iraq, where I came from, and I'm not Iraqi. I'm Indian, and I've also never been to. At that point, never been to India. It is dehumanizing to be thought of that way, right? To be like this notion of belonging. You don't belong. You're not one of us because you're a different skin color. You're brown. And look, the story I always like to tell, when I finished covering the campaign, I was asked a lot, did you ever think Trump was going to win? And the answer's always been like, no, of course. Like, who thought?
Sure.
Even Trump didn't think it was.
I did. I kept saying it over and over for 2 whole weeks.
On December 15th, 2015, Donald Trump sends a press release out to the reporters. We're in Charleston at this point, and the press release says we're instituting I call for a complete and total ban on Muslims until we figure out what the hell's going on. Okay, so at the time, this causes a shockwave.
Sure,
people are like, oh, Trump doesn't want to be in the race anymore. Trump, blah 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 blah. Throughout that day, we as reporters are like, well, Trump is either trying to get out or he's going to like this. We had a rally that night on the USS Yorktown, a battleship in Mount Pleasant, which is a suburb surrounding Charleston. And how's he going to clean this up? He's going to say, the dishonest media is taking my statement out of context. He's going to say, we don't want, it's not that I'm banning all Muslims. I am banning the bad ones.
Right.
Or whatever,
Right.
Right. Okay. He comes out that night.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And he takes out a piece of paper and he reads the statement word for word, as if to make the point. No. Just so I'm clear, this is a full-on Muslim ban. And now that part wasn't surprising to me per se. What did surprise me was the standing ovation he got from the crowd of thousands that lasted probably a minute, 2 minutes. And then for every rally for the next week, 2 weeks, Trump did the same thing, got a big ovation at each one. And that was the moment, as I look back on it, it's like, oh, this is not the country that I recognized existing. That's the moment I realized, oh, Trump might win this thing because he got such a visceral reaction of positivity of saying that he's going to ban all Muslims from coming into the United States.
And 65% of GOP primary voters supported that ban. After that,
I mean, his poll number. Right,
they went to bomb Agrabah too.
His poll numbers after that, after the Muslim ban went up, and he won South Carolina. He won the South Carolina. That essentially sealed him the nomination.
I mean, he's good at figuring out which are the best points to exploit and be hateful about. He knows who to target.
Donald Trump, on that day when that happened, was the most stunning thing in my adult life is watching politics as opposed to watching history reels of America.
Yeah, right.
Was that when, and the crowd cheering was what scared me. The send her back thing was the second most stunning thing I've seen. There's been a lot.
My most stunning thing was when he made fun of the New York Times reporter.
Oh, that's right.
I'm still there.
You're right. There are levels of hell that he will sit in one day.
I can't ever get away from he did it.
Sergey, what's his name?
Serge Kovaleski.
And B, the fact that to this day, so many of his supporters tell me, no, he wasn't making fun of him. That disconnect.
That's not a disconnect. That's gaslighting. That's how people that have done, I'm not going to invoke the name of the person everyone would think of, but that's how people in dark times in history have gotten their base to support horrific crimes against humanity by gaslighting and lying to their people, and they support it. And also when Donald Trump, right before the campaign ended, yelling about the women, they're all liars, I'm going to sue them all, and the crowd cheered when he called the women liars. That was one of the most stunning moments in the campaign as well.
Can I push back on you, Dean, a little bit? With the send her back.
Stop.
Were you actually stunned?
I could not believe that thousands of people cheering. Him tweeting stupidity is one thing. Them cheering that send her back.
I think
send her back.
I was not stunned. Because again, when the Muslim ban, this is a ban of Muslims coming into this country.
The man who's president of the United States of America.
As much as I despise him, at the time that he made the Muslim ban, he was a front runner for the Republican nomination.
He was, but he still was a nominee, and there was a field of people running, and people going up and down. Ben Carson had just been in the lead at the time.
For 5 years, Donald Trump was at the front of the birther movement and rose to the top of the polls.
No,
I just don't. I'm just not buying.
It's a new level. So
if you were stunned, I kind of want to be like, well, where have you watched?
So where have we seen
my
pushback
on your pushback is this?
No matter pushback, I like.
No, I am. I'm gonna. It's a hand drawing a claw. I think that we know that he is capable of anything. I can't believe how acceptable and easy it is. We're done. Send her back is a long gone memory. Moved on. Now the Supreme Court has given him his money for his wall, so they can send her back and she can't come back in.
The idea of trying to predict what Trump's going to do is almost impossible, except for the fact now there is a pattern
He's
here.
going to say the N-word if he has to debate Kamala
But here's the pattern. The banning Muslims, he didn't invent that. I saw that online by right-wing bigots before this, right? Send her back. He didn't invent the idea of telling immigrants or children of immigrants to go back to their country. This is what bigots had said.
He's not original.
So where do you find, what we need to do is just find what white supremacists in 4chan or wherever they are, Daily Stormer and the like, what they're saying, because he's also mimicked chain migration was something white supremacists, white nationalists have been using for years. He took their term. It's a more clinical term. It's a more academic term, but still, he uses their language. So wherever else he's not used yet, he will use that.
Ilhan was married to her brother. Just kind of slid that in.
And that's completely something made out of nowhere.
And the news did Zero to kind of get away, like say that it wasn't true. He just slid that in so that his base, that weird.
So whatever conspiracy right-wing pieces of garbage things are out there, that's.
But if we know it, what do we do with it?
I try to write articles where you say this is what Trump's going to do next, so it diffuses it and go like,
Right.
oh, look at this, he is so predictable.
That's his
because
next
that's the
adjustment.
only thing I can think of. Because I have no idea how dark this. I wrote an article for the Daily Beast a month ago when he retweeted Katie Hopkins in the UK, a horrible white nationalist, anti-Muslim bigot who's called for a Holocaust on Muslims, like really bad.
Yeah.
He retweeted her, get no press here because it's a UK person. I knew who she was, and I wrote about it in Daily Beast. And I said this is a preview probably, and it might get worse than I thought. It'd probably get really bad. And I talk about using white supremacist terms. And then I didn't think a month later we would hear send her back. Like I could not have predicted that. It's just not. And that's why I joke in a way. We need a political version of Hannibal Lecter to sit down with and go like, what's he going to do next? Oh, he's going to eat Nancy Pelosi's liver. Like, wow, we didn't see that coming. But it's plausible. If he did that, you're like, we should have seen that coming. Well, you're an idiot. Of course he's going to eat it.
And he's right. Like literally, if he ate Nancy Pelosi's liver, she would still be like, I'm not sure about impeachment in her last dying breath.
All right, let's take a quick break and come back and try to save America right after this on the Dean Obeidallah Show. Progressive values are the best of American values, and we need to keep fighting for them to save our country.
Don't go anywhere. This is the Dean Obeidallah Show on Sirius XM Progress 127.
Your entire week's exhausted news broken down into one hilarious hour. What Just Happened is now live with Dean Obeidallah.
And welcome back, Dean Obeidallah Show. We're live Friday, July 26th. In studio, Maysoon, Zayid, Sopan Deb from the New York Times, Maysoon comedian, all three of us. So Sopan's a comic as well, July 28th, this Sunday.
What a plug! He's a comic as well.
He's
I guess
funny.
he is.
He's actually really funny. And the comic strip, The Big Brown Comedy Show, Trump wants to send us back. We're not going back. We're making fun of Trump. Come out, have a lot of fun. Comic strip, New York City. So let's talk about the reaction to what happened with Mueller. Here's Colbert's take on it. Not last night, the night before. Let's go all the way to clip 13, my friend Lauren.
One goal for the Democrats was to get Mueller to make clear that Trump's claim that he was exonerated was not true.
The report did not conclude that he did not commit obstruction of justice. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And what about total exoneration? Did you actually totally exonerate the president?
No.
Can you explain in plain terms what that finding means so the American people can understand it?
Well, the finding indicates that the president was not exculpated for the acts that he allegedly committed.
Come on! Did your granddaughter give you a word of the day? Which I mean emojis. Orange. Handcuffs. We need simple slogans. You know, Nike, just do it. Wheaties, breakfast of champions. Trump, the worst a man can get.
The worst a man can get. I would have liked, I think we all wanted it laid out simplistically to people.
Yeah.
That didn't happen. But what was your takeaway from what you watched? I'm not sure how much you watched.
I watched every second
Wow.
of it. Yeah. It was torture. My soap opera fans were counting on me to animate the lack of animation, so that's what I did. It was torture. First of all, I think he's a dreamy guy. Even in his weakest moment, I was like, that dude's a hero.
Well, he
and
is. I
like
agree
you
that.
could tell, and I know that he probably like put me on the surveillance list when he was working under,
FBI?
43. Like, let's be honest. I'm sure that he's done bad things.
I would have put you on the surveillance list.
In my life,
It's just
yeah,
like-
because
and we're
I hang out
friends.
with you, so
Right.
Obidala. But he was terrible. It was painful. I wanted to slap him on the back and get the words out of his mouth. And I understand he clearly does not like public speaking, and he's clearly like Mr. Rules man. But like, you're a man who is willing to take a bullet. This was the time to take a bullet. He should have snapped, stood up, and been like, "He's a criminal! Get him out of office!"
Lauren,
break the hell down.
Lauren, do we still have the clip from the other night with the what I had? It was the what I wanted Mueller to have said and what to do
Oh,
from a
did
few nights ago.
you? Am I like the
No. You just reminded me of it. We'll play it when we come back. All right, so let's go to our friend Sopan Deb from the New York Times and also a very funny comedian. Very funny amateur
You
comedian.
don't have to say that every time, man. I believe
He
you.
does
hilarious.
because he's trying to convince both
If there
of
was
us.
if there was a star search right now, he would be
Yeah,
up
that's
there.
it.
He'd be 3.5 stars.
He would be maybe three and a quarters. The shorter one. Hang on. This is my dream of what Mueller. Did you got it? This was my dream of what Mueller would have stood up and said.
Should go right to fucking jail! Son of a bitch! That man is a slime! He is a slime! If he's allowed to go free, then something really wrong is going on. Mr. President, you are out of order! You're out of order! You're out of order! The whole trial is out of order! They're out of order!
That was my last trial, so bad before I was disbarred.
Do you think about what a hero, what a legend he would be
got up there
had
and
he
said,
done that?
"Do you know what movie that's from?" Or Justice for All, Al Pacino.
Oh,
Al Pacino.
yeah.
You're right, boy.
That's the end of my opening statement. He says they drag him out. Famous line.
Do you miss being a lawyer?
No, I'm very happy I have a law degree because it comes up every day because of Trump, and we had a Supreme Court decision breaking news during this case, and I'm happy I practiced law for a few years, but I didn't enjoy the practice. I didn't enjoy the practice.
Conversation about you and saying, "My God, I can't believe how helpful it's been that he knows law."
Sadly.
Considering that this atrocity is in court every day.
That's right. That's what we're doing. So, Sopan.
Oh, yeah. Talking about the here. Man, I think it's a lot to expect of anybody to have a thousands of page of complicated,
430. But go ahead.
Oh, was it 430?
It's around 430.
I think I get that conflated. I get that conflated with the healthcare. Healthcare law.
That was 1,000.
No, that was 2,000.
That was 2,000.
Yeah,
that
I'm pretty
was
sure
big. No one read that one.
Yeah, right. Anyway, Politico ran a piece maybe 2-3 weeks before the hearings, and most lawmakers did not read the report. So my point is that it's
Christopher Wray didn't read the report.
Well, my point is, like, it's a lot. Yeah. It's a lot, I think, to expect of someone on national TV when you have to kind of talk in 15, 30-second sound bites to have everything memorized and like ready to go as soon as as soon as a congressman is asking about it on the spot. And I think the format is a very extraordinarily difficult one to master when you're talking about issues of law, when you're talking about issues of potentially impeachment, you're talking about obstruction of justice. So from a visual perspective, yes, it probably didn't look great visually of Robert Mueller being, I'm sorry, what are you talking about? Blah, blah, blah.
Right, can you repeat that? Right.
However, let's look at what actually was said here. What actually was said here was Robert Mueller said that President Trump was not exonerated. That we just heard that clip, right. Literally.
That's very, very clear.
But nobody knows that because he was mealy-mouthed. And if he had checked his ego at the door and gotten some damn coaching, he wouldn't have been stuttering the entire time. He could have looked in gone to the mic and said, "Excuse me, I'll look that up." He didn't have to blah, 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 everything.
It's 400 pages.
It doesn't matter. You don't have to stutter at the. This is nothing against stutterers. He's not. I looked it up. I checked. He doesn't have a speech impediment. I checked before I attacked him because Susan Collins does. So I have to be careful with these things, but I don't think he took the time to be coached. I don't think he took it seriously. I think he was childish, didn't want to be there, stomped his foot, could have saved this damn country, and instead sat there like a fool when he could have clearly made statements while staying in his box. He didn't make any strong moves or statements. I get you're timid. The world is about to be nuked by a guy who might wipe Afghanistan off a map.
Mueller made very clear from the start, as soon as he even gave that statement after the Mueller report was, he's like, "Listen, you can have me testify."
Yeah, but you're one guy who gets to control the lives of billions of people because you don't want to be plus.
You can have me testify, but I'm just going to say what's in the report.
Right.
And that's what he did most of the time.
But couldn't he have said it with more passion? Couldn't he have said it with more conviction? Did he have to have everything be mealy mouthed?
I think the problem is too many people.
A crime.
I think the problem really is that the people live in a reality show mindset for everything, including the testimony of a guy who is a former U.S. attorney, who's an FBI director. As a lawyer, I thought his testimony was fabulous in that he fulfilled the elements of the crime for obstruction of justice and witness intimidation. I went through it on the show. From the world we live in, where everything is fast-paced and it has to be beautiful on TV. In fact, here's another joke from Colbert last night. And Colbert sums up in 20 seconds what Robert Mueller really said. And this is all absolutely correct. And then Colbert mocks the media reaction, which I think is a great point. Here's clip number 1, Lauren.
Everybody out there still talking about former special counsel Robert Mueller's appearance on Capitol Hill. 6 hours of testimony. It was so long that by the end, we all felt as old as Robert Mueller looked. At the hearings, Mueller confirmed that the President of the United States was not totally exonerated. Mueller also agreed that Trump obstructed the investigation multiple times, Russia tampered with the election in Trump's favor, and that the president welcomed that help, lied about welcoming it, and encouraged others to lie about it. In short, boring! I assume it must have been because the critics have decided, and they're panning Mueller's performance. Look at these headlines. New York Times, the blockbuster that wasn't. Mueller disappoints the Democrats. AP, Mueller hearing makes for less than compelling TV drama. And he's only got 35% on Rotten Tomatoes.
And Sopan wrote the New York Times one, so that's kind of awkward.
That's so funny.
That he's here right now.
The one thing, though, no matter how frustrated I was with him, I think it's disgusting that Matt Gaetz got to disrespect him on the level that he did.
And there was another congressman who called it un-American what he did, and literally used the term un-American for his investigation, calling a U.S. military veteran.
Ratcliffe?
I think no, it wasn't. It was a guy who's a newer guy who is a veteran himself.
Is it part of the game who said that?
What?
Is it?
No, it's not part of that. I don't think it is. We're going to play that next. What about the media narrative here? That this was it was a letdown. When you look, he was not great optics-wise in the first one. In the Intel one, he was great. He was very much more passionate about the attack on this country. Because the first one was an analytical discussion about obstruction of justice. These are elements of a crime. They're not exciting.
The media who dragged him. Go ahead, Sopan.
Again, I think that focus on optics is, again, I just think we go wrong when we start focusing on that and not what he actually said. Bob Mueller is not Patti LuPone.
No.
Bob Mueller is not, Lin-Manuel Miranda in Hamilton.
I saw
nor is he obligated to be.
Right.
He got subpoenaed to testify. Okay. He did not want to testify. He made very clear from the start that he was going to say exactly what was in the report. And wherever you stand on this, what was in the report was quite a bit. And Mueller essentially restated those things. So when I saw a lot of optics weren't good, this and that was disheartening.
Sure.
Whether you believe that Donald Trump should be impeached or not, just seeing that the focus was on the Robert Mueller's performance as if he's James Corden hosting the Tonys.
But I think the whole point was no one was ever going to read the report. We could have repeated over and over and over again that all these things that show obstruction are there. They needed that aha moment that they had in the Nixon trials, and they didn't get it. They didn't get it because Bob Mueller put his self first and not this country first and refused to give us what we needed.
Well, I think Robert Mueller probably did the best he could, frankly. Although, by the way, Mueller is going to be in the traveling show of Hamilton that's just in.
Yeah,
breaking news.
That's right.
He'll be playing Aaron Burr. It's kind of weird.
Of course he's
not throwing away a shot
to take the bullet.
I'm the damn fool who shot him. That's his line in the opening song where he does that. So,
oh my God. You know what's funny? In 100 years, there's going to be a Broadway show about this period that we're living in.
We're not going to make it past 2020. This
what
idea
will the
that
country
we're
be called
going
then?
to survive
In Trumpistan, there'll be a whole. Will
Trump
they allow
America?
music and comedy when Donald Trump Jr. III is president?
It just has to.
You want to know a scary thing? I spoke to Republican, never Trump or Republican professionals, like on MSNBC, and one we talked in the commercial before we were going on, and she is not kidding. That's just recently that there are Trumpers who literally dream of when Trump leaves that Donald Trump Jr. becomes the next president, like a third world country, a dynasty. And they're not joking. I go, you're kidding. She goes, no, they're not kidding.
They go all the way through to Barron and they have all the years numbered. And I'm not even making this up. They skip Eric. It goes Ivanka, Don Jr., Tiffany, Barron in the movie.
I think part of the reason they want Donald Trump Jr., though, is in their mind, Trump will still be president. The same way Putin could only serve 2 terms as president. Then he put Medved in as president when he was prime minister. He really ran everything, then he returned to being president. That's it. They don't know what I'm talking about in that regard, but that's the whole point. He would still be president. This is scary. The view of this nation by our opponents politically.
Well, also that he's always throwing that out. What if I just stay longer? He's tried that, tested that 3 or 4 times now.
Thank God the framers of the Constitution.
There's no
the
framers
president's
anymore.
power.
Look at what's happening.
But the 20th Amendment, his powers disappear.
Doesn't matter.
On January 20th at noon. There's nothing. You have to suspend the Constitution.
Somehow FDR did it. If FDR
we didn't have a 22nd Amendment. That's why.
We didn't have it.
No, we have 22nd Amendment since then.
This is why we need a lawyer.
That's why we're here. And so, in fact, the dean of my law school, John Farragut, helped draft the 22nd Amendment. That's why I know about it. Yeah, seriously.
See?
Let's take a break in the 60s.
You resented it.
No, the 1960s. I wasn't alive, but I read stuff. This is what I do.
You were not alive in the 60s.
Not then.
70s.
All right, let's take a break and be right back after this with Lauren O'Stooney. Look, it's time the media start calling out Trump's false statements for what they are. Lies. Trump is a liar. And by the looks of it, he's lying every day and twice on Sundays.
The Dean Obadala Show.
listening to What Just Happened with everyone's favorite host, Dean Obeidallah.
And welcome back, Dean Obeidallah Show. We're live Friday, July 26th. And now I know you've been waiting, and now it is time for the newest game show sensation.
Now, it's time for America's newest game show sensation. Guess who's got it?
I'm going to let Sopan win because I'm better.
Let Maysoon win.
I just wish you'd let him talk. Is that possible? Will you let him talk? Stop Katie Turing it.
Don't use women's names as verbs.
Not Nagin Prasading it? No,
that's true. They're
that's
negating
fine. We're
it.
doing the same.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. This is a very simple thing. I'm going to give you a quote from this week, and I'm going to give you 4 options. Between the two of you, I know you're going to get them not only right, but even a bonus question that I haven't written down you'll get right because you two are really good. Last week's group, dumb. So here we go.
Who was on?
I'm not going to say their names. I'm not like that.
I'm gonna look it up.
They were not good.
Matt, tell me after.
They were so bad. I was trying to give them answers. I'm like, dude.
Laura,
it was embarrassing.
Okay.
It was rough. I'm not kidding. It was.
Okay.
So do I have to let him talk now?
No, you can. You guys collectively answer. They couldn't collectively answer the questions. I'm like, how do you not know this? I was worried about America. So that's my. Here we go. Some of these are hard. I mean, Matt and Lauren. Look, I've seen people with onset dementia. I'm not going to mock this man. He obviously shouldn't have been there. He should have never headed this investigation. Sean Hannity, Mark Levin, Louis Gohmert, Matt Getz.
Mark Levin.
Actually, I think it was Levin.
You guys are right. You're very good. All right, here we go. I feel strongly that the same position Congress is in now, and let me start. I'm sorry. Let me do this again. Take 2. I feel strongly that. Oh, the word that's is twice here. I feel strongly that that's the same position Congress is in now, and they should step up to the plate and do their job. It doesn't mean that the president will be removed from office or should be removed from office or will be impeached, but it's absolutely clear to me time has come for Congress to pursue a dedicated impeachment inquiry. Was it Andy McCabe, Leon Panetta, Rod Rosenstein, anyone without brain disease? That's funny.
Well,
Panetta?
I actually don't know this.
I'm saying Panetta.
You're going to go with Panetta?
Who was the first one?
McCabe.
Andy McCabe.
I'll go McCabe.
You're right.
That's
right.
That
was a guess.
Remember, I'm letting him win because I'm going to get more laughs
There's
on
no
Sunday
winning.
at the comics
it's
strip
you
at 8
against apathy.
There is
it's
winning.
You against.
We
there's no
get
losing.
points. Right now, I have 1 and he has 2.
Here we go. I think you could sum up the obstruction part of the Mueller report, Trump being Trump. This is a real quote. Brian Kilmeade, Kellyanne Conway, Tucker Carlson, and Jeanine Pirro. These are all real people with visible platforms. And someone actually said, I think you could sum up the obstruction part of the Mueller report, Trump being Trump.
Kilmeade.
Who do you go?
Oh, I'll go Kilmeade, yeah.
You're both. How did you get that? Did you know that?
No, I didn't know.
Because you go through and you go, who defends him, but who's the dumbest of the 4?
Because you sound kind of like Brian Kilmeade, and I was
You
like,
do.
oh, that sounds like a Brian
That's
Kilmeade.
what I said. It
You
sounded
got a little
like his
Kilmeade to you.
He's not a bad guy. He's human, just not bright.
Come on, stop. They're not human anymore.
Okay, this is kind of easier, but it's kind of fun. Rand Paul called me a gutter snipe. I have a mind to call him a scallywag and a ragamuffin. I'll escalate this. Colbert, Kimmel, Oliver, Jon Stewart.
Jon Stewart.
Yeah.
And
That was a given,
bless
but it's funny.
That picture of him and Mitch McConnell, I'm going to frame it in my house.
There was a senator, I think it was after my pancreatic cancer, who announced with great glee that I was going to be dead within 6 months. The senator whose name I have forgotten is now himself dead, and I am very much alive. Who said that? Clinton, Sanders, RBG, Liz Warren.
RBG?
She didn't know. How do you not know? I just feel better about myself. This was too easy. It's a fun quote, though.
Is it better for you as a host for us to know all these answers, or is it better for you that we don't know?
I feel like he wants us to
mix.
win.
I think it's a mix of things. Like
I'm sorry to ruin your show. I'm sorry.
No, I like a mix. No, you got them all right. That's fine.
No,
it makes it for now. Averaging you with last week, we're at 50%. All right, so.
Wait, you had people on last week that got every question wrong?
They got one right by accident.
Now I know why your producer Matt emailed me and was like, "Hey, Sopan, we really need you to, buddy. We need some heavy hitters for Friday."
No,
I know.
I honestly, people think that I enjoy when they get. It's not about me feeling better that you get it wrong. It's not about about that. It's just fun to joke around, right?
I thought,
but they'd gotten so many wrong. I felt bad. I'm like, and they're smart people. They just didn't get the quotes. And
I thought Matt was emailing because like, oh, you're such a good guest. You're such a good guy. No. This was rescuing last week. I see. Okay.
Maybe you read the newspaper.
The reason you're here is because we're plugging Sunday's show. It literally has nothing to do with your skill set.
Are Matt and Lauren coming Sunday night? Are you guys coming to the show?
Lauren
Are you?
is. But Matt's not allowed to. He has to work.
Oh, that's great.
No,
Okay.
he's doing something else. So we only got.
She's paying for her ticket, right? We're not comping her.
Of course, she's paying for 2 tickets.
Okay, good.
And a 4-drink minimum just went up for Lauren. So it's gonna be great. And she looked at me. Okay, last thing. We only got like 2 minutes here, but this is not part of the game. You guys did great. What about Donald Trump appearing before a great seal, the seal of the United States, and it wasn't the seal of the U.S. at all. It had been doctored, and not by the person who posted it. But I love the fact it had the Russian eagles. He didn't notice that, which I thought I would have noticed that. But also in Spanish, the insult was written 45 as a puppet, and it had golf clubs, but it had 2-headed imperial bird right from the Russian like Romanov seal, coat of arms, right up there. And
the golf clubs, right? The golf clubs,
was that
right,
just the ultimate troll that no one at Turning Point, the white supremacist super PAC? I shouldn't call it white supremacist, white nationalist, perhaps is the right word for it. That no one noticed it at all. Like no one. It was a huge.
It literally is like the perfect symbol of the fact that they are all full of shit and they're not patriotic and they don't even know what it looks like. They're all full of shit. Bunch of white nationalists.
They're not really. They're gonna complain. Like, what's his name? Candace Owens will say they're not. But let's be honest. These rallies.
Yeah,
he was making fun of Rashida Tlaib,
so.
calling her a lunatic at this event, and the place is going crazy. But. So, I mean, that was a fun moment. And I love that Trump...
But doesn't that prove that they lack patriotism, that they can't even recognize the actual symbols, that this is all just a cult?
I don't think
anyone who votes for Trump is patriotic.
Who pays attention to the presidential seal?
No, in the audience, you would not. I think you would wonder if Trump would have noticed something.
The person putting it up just shows you again.
All right, we got to go to... We have to go to break. Lauren's yelling at me because she has a 4-drink minimum now. All right. Be right back.
Have a couple of them.
Dean Obadala Show on Sirius XM Progress 127.
You're listening to What Just Happened with everyone's favorite host, Dean Obeidallah.
And welcome back to the Nobi Dollar Show, Friday, July 26th. So, Maysoon, Zayid, Sopan, Ted, thank you very much, both of you. Where can people follow you on Twitter? And then I'll plug the show one last time.
Go to Maysoon.com. Like the month of May is coming soon. Maysoon.com. All my social media is there. And most importantly, come out Sunday night to the comic strip, 8 p.m. Watch me make you laugh and clap for Sopan. So he feels good.
Lauren, if you don't like my set, don't tell anybody.
That's it.
Plug yourself. You have no time to flirt with Lion.
Yeah.
He's not flirting. Okay. Well, how much time off? Tell your Twitter account.
Sopan Deb. SOPANDEB.
And again, this Sunday, New York City, July 28th, it's going to be the Big Brown Comedy Hour comic strip. I'm in it. Asif Mandi, Maysoon. Others have been on the show. Athir Yakub is the MC. And Nina, who used to work on my old show, will be in the show doing comedy. Thanks for listening. I'll be on Twitter all weekend at Dean Obeidallah, or drop me an email, dean@deanofradio.com. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great weekend. Have some fun. Monday we come back. We keep fighting.